We've spent quite a bit of time talking about suicide prevention, the importance of everybody being aware of the warning signs, taking action. Well, there are certain personnel in our schools that really need training in suicide assessment because someone, and this may vary between schools, probably most likely to be a school counselor, a social worker, a school psychologist, or a nurse. Someone is going to need to sit down and talk with the young person that someone believes may be suicidal. And this actually provokes a great deal of anxiety for those school personnel. And one of the best articles I read basically said, try to approach the young person as if they were taking a trip. Just think about the logical questions you would ask them. And also establishing rapport and having eye contact is really critical. The person making the assessment would probably like to write down every single word that the young person is saying, but those notes are going to have to be written down later because right now it's about having a relationship and really being there to listen to the young person. There are a lot of things that are important to find out. First of all, it would be really good to know if they know anybody who's died by suicide. Just being exposed to suicide is also one of the risk factors. It'd be a good idea to know whether or not they use drugs and or alcohol. But there are really a couple of key questions that I believe must be asked. If you want me to be honest, I've spent an entire career asking kids these questions. It's like somebody else knows they need to be asked, but they don't really want to ask those questions. Somehow we have to get professionals in every school in Texas comfortable with asking three critical questions. Number one is, are you thinking about suicide now? Or you could phrase it, are you thinking of giving up? Are you thinking you don't want to live anymore? Now, I've actually had students respond, in many different ways. But the second critical question is really, have you ever attempted suicide before? Because if a young person has attempted before, it's like barriers and inhibitions are down, and they're the most likely to make an attempt tomorrow. Much more likely to make an attempt than the person who has never previously attempted suicide. The third and critical question is, tell me, what's your plan? How would you end your life? What method would you use to die by suicide? And it's critical that we ask that question. Now, some students have said things like, well, I never thought about exactly how. I just wish I could go to sleep and never wake up. Well, I know that I'm going to be contacting their parents, but not quite with the same urgency as the young person who would say something like, I'll tell you how I'm going to do it. I'm going to shoot myself with the pistol. I had it out last night. I pointed it at my head. Now, if that were the case, and we had a definite plan, a method to die by suicide, I'm very sincere in saying that I'm really not going to let that student out of my sight. Well, it could be that I need to seek supervision and collaboration. Well, how would I do that? Well, I would have the student sitting in my office. I would bring in another staff member and ask them to please sit here with this student. I need to make a call. Or maybe I need to know next door and I need to talk to one of the other counselors. I'm going to be saying, I've asked this, here's the information I've received. What am I forgetting? Being able to collaborate and get supervision can greatly reduce the anxiety for the person that is doing the suicide assessment. Now, here is something that's really important that we go over. That is, whenever in the Texas schools we have reason to believe a student is suicidal, yes, we need to make an assessment, but we also need to notify their parents. I've been involved in several legal suits, and really where the schools have made a really big mistake is somebody has good reason to believe that a young person is suicidal, but they do not contact their parents. They instead keep the information confidential. And it's really important that parents know. In fact, I believe that very few things change in a child's life without the support of the parents. And the school personnel might be thinking, well, I think notifying the parents is only going to make this worse. Our challenge is to make it better. And there's only one exception to notifying the parents. If we believe the child is the victim of abuse, then we are calling protective services here in the state of Texas. Otherwise, we're keeping the students with us. We're calling for a parent conference. We're doing a clear transfer of the student to parents, and they have been notified of their child's suicidal thoughts. Some schools may want to go as far as to develop a form where parents sign that they've been notified of the psychological and suicidal emergency of their child. And school personnel also must know the resources here in Texas. They must know, are there mobile crisis teams and services available in our community? Where is the best treatment available so we can help the parents seek additional support for their child? We also need to do follow-up at school. So if we have an example where the parents were cooperative, their child might have gone in the hospital for a short period of time, maybe they're getting private counseling, well, we do need to keep track at school. Hopefully we have a release of information so we can talk to the professionals in the community. We are constantly checking in with the young person, and we're making sure that those thoughts of suicide have not returned. Several cases that I'm aware of, the parents, when notified, said, well, just have him walk home or just put him on the school bus. I'm not aware of any tragedies that occurred because kids walked home or because they were put on the school bus. But my personal recommendation is I really believe there needs to be a direct handoff or transfer to the parents. And unless they can guarantee that they're going to be waiting at the bus stop, and unless we can guarantee the young person does not get off somewhere en route, I really think the best scenario is a physical meeting and a reuniting with the suicidal young person and their family.